All right, so we're here in week 9. This is the first week of distance learning. I'm just going to show you a little bit about how this is going to be a little bit different than normal. Looks the same as when we were doing hybrid. The only difference is that now you're going to be at home. So the expectation when you were kind of in hybrid was you were here physically one of those 2 days. Well, now you need to be online in this class both days. Ideally, you come to the Google Meet both days. So if you're odd, Monday and Tuesday. If you're even hour, you come Wednesday and Thursday. And you work on the day 1 assignment on that first day and day 2 assignment on that second day. The in-class assignment will be something that will be taught through the Google Meet. And so there'll be one version of that on the first day, and then the second day will also go over that and it will be discussed. So ideally, you come in both days, you spend the time working on this assignment, asking any questions, getting any guidance on the Google Meet. Now, if you can't, all of these things can be done online. However, remember your attendance will be taken because you're in the Google Meet as present, or you've come into the Schoology class on that day you have class, both Monday and Tuesday or Wednesday and Thursday. So you have to come to both days. So here's what you're looking at for this week. We are starting a unit focused on westward expansion. And one of the things that I really focus on is this idea of intended and unintended consequences of westward movement of those original states in our country heading west towards the Mississippi River. So this assignment we've been doing all year. You have to do a definition, an image, and a sentence for the terms that are down in this box. All right. If you do all 3 for each term, you get a 4. If you do at least one of these 3 for all terms, you get a 3. Anything less than that would be a 2 or 1. All right. So these are the terms for this unit. You are looking at terms that have to deal with the unintended consequences of some of this westward expansion. We get the kind of national ideas that come out of this response of moving westward, the Louisiana Purchase and the Lewis and Clark expedition, and their guide Sacagawea, which really sets in fact some unintended and intended consequences. Some of those things dealing with how trade will now be going on with different countries because we're taking over new lands with new resources. And then some of the unintended or unintended consequences of native resistance that comes with that. We get a rise in the war hawks with their generals like William Henry Harrison wanting to engage with a lot of the native population, but they also have their strong leadership like Tecumseh in the Ohio River Valley. We also have one of the consequences that comes out of this with Andrew Jackson, a general who fights very strong in the Battle of New Orleans to defeat the British in the War of 1812, which really sets forward some of the things that are in our next vocabulary lesson dealing with nationalism. The Quizlet is attached here. I've kind of moved a little bit of the reading out of this because the reading really is divided up in different parts of the text. It's a lot easier to just look and use at the Quizlet. So again, you can work on that vocab, turn it in, and then take the quiz. And remember, you can take these quizzes twice. So if you want to take it one time, see what the terms are, what you know and what you don't know, and then go back, do the vocab assignment, and turn in the quiz, the best. Ideally, the best option, do all the vocab terms, take the quiz, get the highest score. So same thing for day 2. This is more towards some of the unintended consequences, which is the rise of nationalism and sectionalism. So basically, this is the idea that as we start to head westward, there's this change in identity in the American viewpoint of themselves. They become much more nationalistic. They don't think of themselves so much as a sectionalized part of the country, but they start to unify in this fighting against the native populations, the British. But there still is this core sectionalism. And a lot of that is kind of encapsulated with these events. The Monroe Doctrine, which basically is the establishment that if any foreign power, particularly from Europe, comes into the Americas, we will defend our hemisphere. And this extends even into South and Central America and the Caribbean. The other side of this is the Missouri Compromise. One of the unintended consequences of westward expansion is having to figure out which states will be slave states and which will not. So this divide that started at the outset of this country over the issue of slavery will really start to see a lot of conflict in the mid-1800s. And then the last thing has to do here with the Indian Removal Act. A very brutal consequence of westward expansion was pushing many of the southeastern native tribes west, those especially who would not assimilate into the more American European culture. And then the last thing has to do with nullification, which is one of those interesting things that really is probably the unintended consequence of westward expansion, but then leads to a very defined consequence that will lead to the Civil War. Nullification basically said that if a state didn't want to follow a law, they didn't have to, they could nullify it. And this is going to be one of the core arguments in the issue with slavery. All right, so now the last assignment, which is going to be one of the big different things in distance learning, is that this is an assignment where you will be doing an assignment in a Google Doc. All right, so the actual assignment, when you open it up right here, is a set of questions that are dealing with some notes that we're going to take. And so if you're in the Google Meet, the expectation is that you're going to participate in the actions of figuring out how to answer these questions. All right, and they're all in order, and I will be presenting the information in a Google Meet that you will be more or less joining into. So the assignment is to answer the questions in the Google Doc. Now, if you cannot make that Google Meet and go through this presentation, you can use these notes down here to help you answer those questions. Okay? And so really the assignment, and this is a formative assignment, is to do these notes. These are things that are going to help you for the summative that we're going to take in a couple weeks. So it's very important, and this is my expectation, is that for 2 days you were in the Google Meet. And it could be you're in there for 5 minutes, you check in, you see what you have to do, you have any questions, but at least you showed up, all right? And hopefully stick around so that I can take you through these notes. And then the idea is that then you can maybe go and work on these things on your own. I don't really expect that you'll have to be in the Google Meet for an hour and a half, but I really expect you to show up both days in the Google Meet. If you cannot, there is an option available to just go and do the work on your own at a different time. The one thing I will say is that do not get in the practice of just doing all this work on a Monday if you have class on Wednesday and Thursday. Don't get into the practice of doing all this work on a Saturday if you have class Monday and Tuesday. You can get the assignments done, and you can do okay if you do that, but you'll be marked absent for both those days. So you need to come into Schoology Monday and Tuesday or Wednesday and Thursday. You need to come into the Google Meet Monday and Tuesday or Wednesday and Thursday, depending on what hour in class you have. All right, if you have any questions, please send me messages through Schoology or send me an email.